Well, hey everybody, Andy Kvernen here with another Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. You know, it's no secret that it's election season here in America, and there's a consequential election coming up, and a lot of times we as Christians kind of ask, what's my role, what's my responsibility in the election, in voting, and in maybe engaging in public discourse about who to vote for and how to vote and what to think and all these things. And certainly there are some principles that come to mind when it comes to engaging in politics, and certainly Jesus said in Matthew 5 that we're to be salt and light on the earth. And as light, we're to represent Jesus with the glory of God. We're to image Christ to those around us. And Jesus teaches us how to do that in Matthew 5 through 7 through things like the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, etc., etc. But he also says that we're to be salt. And salt is this preserving agent. When salt gets on something, everything tastes salty. And the idea is that as Christians, we're to have influence. We're to engage in ways that are preservative for those around us, including our nation. And so it makes sense to me that if we're to be salt, we ought to be engaged in the process. We ought to vote. We ought to consider how to use our vote to produce the things that are righteous and good and God-honoring. And so there are other principles that we could talk about, but one of the things that we come to today in our Bible reading is Psalm 72. And this is a royal psalm. It's a psalm of Solomon, the subtitle says. And this is a psalm that is asking God to bless the leader of the nation of Israel. And we need to be careful. Sometimes we read a psalm like this, we read a passage like this that's specific to the nation of Israel, and we apply it broadly and sort of ubiquitously to things like or entities like America and our president or these kinds of things. And so we have to keep in mind this is a prayer for the king of Israel. And because Israel was God's holy chosen nation, they were God's chosen people, the king had a special place, the king of Israel, in the outworking of God's plan. And yet, I think there are some principles that we can glean from Psalm 72 as we pray for our nation during the time that we're in. And so let me just read a little bit of it to you. It says in Psalm 72, "Give the king your justice, O God, and your righteousness to the royal son. May he judge your people with righteousness and your poor with justice." Here the psalmist is asking God to supply for the leader of the nation of Israel such that righteousness and justice would be enacted in the land. Who for? Well, specifically he says, may he judge your people with righteousness. May he act on behalf of the people for the righteousness of God. That's a prayer there. What a great prayer to pray for the leader of America and for any leader in our world today. May they act in ways that are righteous according to God for the benefit of the people. I encourage you to pray that and to consider that as you prepare to vote this November. And he also says, may he judge your people with righteousness and your poor with justice. The prayer there is that the leader of the nation would act in a just way towards those who don't have as much as others, that the poor would be treated righteously, that they would be treated fairly, that they would be treated mercifully, those kinds of things. And that was a big concern for the nation of Israel. It ought to be a big concern for us here in the United States. It continues in verse 3, "Let the mountains bear prosperity for the people, and the hills in righteousness. May he, the king, defend the cause of the poor of the people, and give deliverance to the children of the needy, and crush the oppressor." Here at the very end here, may the leader of the land also defend the land. May he crush the oppressor. May he do what's necessary in order to ensure the safety of the people. And of course, friends, we know ultimately the way toward righteousness, the way toward justice, the way toward safety, it's all summed in the person of God himself, in God's presence, in God's provision. And when we as a people submit to God, God has his way in us and through us. That's our best hope. And yet, we can pray, and we should pray, that the leader of our land would also value these things, that he or she would value righteousness according to God's design, that would benefit the people, that he or she would care about justice for the poor, that he or she would care about defending our land against enemies that would cause us harm. There's more to this, but let me just encourage you to ponder on that today. Say a prayer for those running for office, both locally here and also nationally. Say a prayer that God would be glorified and that he would preserve serve his nation through us, his people, salt and light here in the land. God bless you. Have a great day. And Lord willing, we'll see you again soon on the Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional.